Hi, this is Mrs. Hanson, your online psychology instructor, and I'm giving you a little mini lecture on Chapter 5, which is about 4 different learning models. And the 2 main learning models that you're going to be challenged with is classical conditioning, which was discovered by Pavlov. You've probably heard of Pavlov's dogs, and that is the classic scenario, and I posted a reenactment video for you of Pavlov's laboratory and his, what he was discovering about classical conditioning with his dogs and salivation. I'll do another mini lecture on classical conditioning, but I'm going to focus this one on operant conditioning and some of the terminology in operant conditioning. I have found that the most challenging concept for introductory psychology students in operant conditioning is to understand the difference between positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement. They both are reinforcements. They are pleasurable, desirable, wanted consequences that follow a behavior. So if you do a certain behavior and you immediately or later even get a desirable consequence, something you want, then that is reinforcing. A paycheck is a positive reinforcement. You definitely want a paycheck. However, you don't get one every single day. You have to wait for it. So that would be a fixed interval schedule of reinforcement, one of the partial reinforcement schedules in operant conditioning. You get one either at the end of every month or bi-weekly. You have to wait for it, but you have to do the desired behaviors all along the way, correct? All right, so positive reinforcement, children get candy as reinforcement for going potty or whatever, stickers, whatever. Anything the child wants can be a positive reinforcement. However, there is another kind of reinforcement called negative reinforcement. And negative reinforcement is when a behavior is reinforced by escaping or avoiding some aversive stimulus. So when a child does something, a behavior you want them to do, and they do it because they want to avoid a punishment, that is a negative reinforcement. Okay, you want to avoid something bad, so you do the behavior. So getting out of an aversive situation is in itself reinforcing. The best example I can give you, unfortunately, is in drug use. Drug users, of course, have a hard time quitting, as I mentioned in another mini lecture. When they're in withdrawal and the only thing that will allow them to escape the pain is shooting up again, then shooting up is not only being positively reinforced by the pleasure of the drug, but it's also being negatively reinforced by the avoidance of withdrawal pain. Does that make sense? Avoiding the pain. And you will do anything to avoid the pain, right? So those behaviors get reinforced. If you get frequent headaches and you have finally found some behavior or thing that makes you feel better and stops the headache, then whatever that thing, maybe it's putting an ice pack on your forehead and you find that that works. Well, when the headache goes away, that's negative reinforcement for you continuing to use an ice pack method, right? That's a behavior. So putting an ice pack on your head is being reinforced negatively by getting out of the headache pain. Okay, if you want to avoid a driving ticket and, a speeding ticket, and you're driving the speed limit, then that behavior of driving the speed limit is negatively reinforced by you avoiding getting a speeding ticket. Okay? How about putting on your seatbelt? You put on your seatbelt And the negative reinforcement for that is you don't go flying through the front windshield of your car in an accident. That's negative reinforcement. There isn't much positive reinforcement in putting on a seatbelt, but there is a lot of negative reinforcement, right? Nobody wants to go flying through their windshield. I hope you can come up with examples of your own for positive and negative reinforcement. The positive reinforcement is pretty simple. It's the negative reinforcement that sometimes is difficult to understand. So any behavior which leads to escaping or avoiding an aversive situation is in itself reinforcing. I have a new granddaughter. She's just turning a year old next month. Very happy about that. She's going to come to California so I can see her. They live in Chicago, which is a real bummer for me, for Grandma, because it's difficult for me to see them very often. But as I took care of her when she was a baby, I was conditioned to do whatever she needed to stop her crying. Isn't that right? I just want her to quit crying. That's painful to me. That's aversive. So if I discover, what I did discover is that holding her a certain way, and singing my special song to her calmed her down. And then I got to avoid the aversive situation or the painful situation of having to hear her cry and knowing her pain. So I got to avoid that aversive crying, and my holding her and singing my special song was being negatively reinforced. I hope that this helped you understand the difference between positive and negative reinforcement. I'll post another mini lecture on classical conditioning. Good luck to you all on Chapter 5.